biggest failure or my biggest struggle is constantly worrying about my lack of, right? My insufficiency, just not being that good. That really affects my self-confidence. But to have God by my side and always remind me that I can do this because of him, that's my biggest victory. Okay, hey, I'm Dalu, Duembi-Kachikwu. Most people know me as Dalu, Nigerian American. I'm just really into different stuff from coding to animating to cooking. And I was raised as a Catholic Christian.
Okay, awesome. Got a lot of different interests and stuff. What's your favorite thing to cook?
Favorite thing to cook? Ooh, I have to go with ramen. It's always it's a simple meal, but I feel like I can always change something here and there.
How do you change up a ramen meal?
Sometimes I do like some beef. Sometimes I do some chicken. If I'm feeling daring, I can try and do like a whole gourmet meal, have some side dishes, maybe even fry it a bit. So it's always a fun time.
That's awesome. Well, you're a step ahead of me because I love putting stuff in the microwave, and that's about all I could do. That's awesome.
I've been trying to get back into it in college now, but like I always just feel like there's no time to actually go into the whole kitchen and then turn on the stove and do everything. So I just pop up in the microwave.
Yep. It's a lot easier, that's for sure.
It is.
That's awesome. Good stuff. All right, so let's kind of pivot a little bit. You mentioned there at the end that you were a Catholic Christian. So kind of talk a little bit about your faith life. Has it been something that's been kind of lifelong or something you've discovered? You know, kind of talk a little bit about that.
I will say, so I was raised Catholic Christian, as I mentioned before, my whole life. I think when I actually started taking an active reign over my own faith life was around middle school. Because before then, I was just like, oh, you're like, you get told you're a Christian, you get told this is your background, you believe in God, everything like that. But then in middle school, I took a more active role in my faith. I didn't even know why. I'll be honest with you, I can't like tell you like what the shift was, but I started reading the Bible more frequently. So I use the Bible app, right? And in the Bible app, they always have this verse of the day. And then what I decided to do to just build a habit was every verse of the day, I'll read the verse of the day, and I'll read the chapter assigned to the verse of the day. So that was my way of keeping connected with the Bible.
Okay. If you could recall a favorite passage or chapter or verse that kind of stood out to you.
My favorite chapter, at least my favorite verse is right here on my wristband, Philippians chapter 4, verse 13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Honestly, I think it's one of my favorite verses because I think it speaks a lot to my life. I'm always someone who's seeking to do a lot of stuff, even when I can. So always knowing that God has my back, no matter what resources or how many resources I have at my disposal, is something that always makes me feel comfortable. And like even for the project that I do, like Project Phillips or the sword over there, it's based off the book of Philippians. So Project Phillips, to kick off Project Phillips, I made a sword. So then it's called the Phillips sword. And that's how I got the name. It's always been something so cool to have right next. I hold it very dear to my heart.
So when did you come to the United States?
So I was born and raised here for the first 8 years of my life. And then I moved to Nigeria for 6 years and came back.
Okay. So this actually goes in well to my next question. Because what was your faith life like? I guess you were obviously old enough in Nigeria to kind of remember a little bit about it. Do you did you remember anything different about how faith is practiced here in the United States versus in Nigeria? Is it kind of similar, different?
That's a good question. I'm trying to think about it now. Honestly, I feel like faith had more of it was more at the forefront, I guess. In Nigeria, it was much more common and just like you could sense it more, I guess, in Nigeria. I also went to a school where like the two main faiths were Islam or Muslims and Christians. So it's really interesting having that dynamic of having because the school I went to, the private school I went to, Regent Secondary, the two biggest demographics religion-wise were Muslims and Christians. So it was always interesting having two strong faiths there and just learning about different faiths and learning more about your faith. So it's really interesting, especially in Nigeria. I'm forgetting the exact terms, and I feel really bad because I did a whole class on this. But there's these for Muslims, there's these 5 prayers you do a day, and then having a kind of that they also did that in school. So then it was really interesting to know that faith was really important to everyone who went to that school, regardless of if you're a Christian or if you're a Muslim. In contrast with, I guess when I came back to America, I noticed it was less present. I won't say less present, but it felt less at the forefront, especially because when I came back, I went to a public school at first. And to mention God and stuff like and of that matter wasn't as common as it was in Nigeria. So I say that would be the biggest difference.
Do you remember any like services?
Honestly, not. I guess church was longer. I will say that. And the church I went to in Nigeria was sometimes with like 3 hours. So like coming to America and going to like mass that's 1 hour felt like really, really different. But besides that, it was pretty much similar, I would say. Like a lot of it was similar. There's more, obviously there's more like events, and when there was like when it was Easter, it would be a very, very big event. It was very festive. Compared to in America, it felt more like a home event rather than a very large community event. So maybe that was a difference. But I think that's based on like Maryland specific, or where I live in Maryland.
Tell me about the Catholic parish and stuff that you go to here. Like, what is a service like? You know, what do kind of people wear? What goes on? Kind of talk a little bit about
that. So I go to St. John Newman's. It's right next door. Honestly, it's actually really just because everyone has like a different attire they wear. Some people just like wear casual clothing, maybe a t-shirt and some pants. Other people like wear more formal clothing. Some people can even like wear a suit or so. The most common outfits though is like maybe like a nice button-up shirt with some khakis, and then it's a nice service though. I think it's a very tight-knit community. There's a lot of I want to say humor, which really brings everyone together on the Sunday mornings. It's also a 1 hour mass, so that's really nice. It is really nice because they do a lot of stuff outside the service, the 1 hour service. So you also have different community events and like Bible study sessions. So there's always something going on, which is really nice. So they have like a branch of stuff they're doing, which you can at any time you can tell them of those stuff.
So I get that same sense of community that you had in Nigeria, except a third of the time.
Yeah.
Do you prefer the longer services or the shorter services?
Ooh, I'm gonna be very honest. I personally prefer the shorter services. I feel like with the shorter services, I think it's really nice, and I think maybe I'm still like maturing in my faith. So 1 hour is probably like as much as I can. How do I phrase this? 1 hour is just more suitable for me. At 3 hours, it kind of gets a bit long, and then at a certain point, like around the for the 1 hour mass, right? In the last 10 minutes or so, it's more so them talking about different charities they're doing or different fundraising stuff that's going on. But for the 3 hour mass, it's like that, but like the last hour is like that. So like church really ends at 2 hours, but in the last hour, you kind of have like this long spiel about different stuff, and it's kind of like I don't know, it kind of gets a bit tiring at times. So I personally prefer the 1 hour mass. I will say though, for the 3 hour mass, or there's another church I went to in Nigeria. After the end of the mass, they'll give food to everyone. Like they'll give you these small bags of snacks. So like you would have puff puff, samosa, some spring rolls. So it's really nice to have that.
So I guess there are a few perks for the longer time, which is nice. Yeah. So let's kind of pivot a little bit. You know, obviously you had lots of different faith experiences, both here in the United States and in Africa. So throughout your life, if you had to kind of pick one struggle and one victory that you've had with your faith, what might you say for one of those?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think one struggle I've had really is it's not even like one event in time. It's more so a constant struggle I deal with is dealing with failure. Whenever it is that I lose, or if I fail an exam or a test, anything, or if I don't get the opportunity I've been working really hard for, it's really hard to that's where I struggle the most in my faith. And it's not even a matter of like I blame God. It's really just I see myself as so insufficient, right? And then I really think that's where my victory comes in as well, which is really nice. It's where I'm able to have that connection with God where I can recognize that I'm not enough, but he's the one who fulfills me, right? So to kind of summarize it, really my biggest failure or my biggest struggle is constantly worrying about my lack of, right? My insufficiency, my just not being that good. And constantly that really affects my self-confidence. But to have God by my side and always remind me that I can do this because of him, that's my biggest victory.
That's very relatable. I mean, I know myself and lots of other people have that same issue of self-doubt. Mm-hmm. And every time I think about, that, I'm reminded of a verse in 2 Corinthians when it says that my grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in weakness. So it's a reminder. It helps me at least to remember that, yeah, I may not be who I want to be, but mm-hmm. God will be with me, and God will help me, and God will support me just as I am. And I could lean on God, and mm-hmm. not kind of carry everything on my own.
And I think that's what's really powerful about it. I continued in high school, and now I'm continuing to college, where every day I just stick with my Bible. Like I read the verse of the day, that I read the chapter associated with it, and I try to be as consistent as possible.
Well, that's good. At least you're getting your daily dose of mm-hmm. of the word every day. You've obviously been involved in the Catholic faith your whole life. Mm-hmm. But what might you say to someone who, may have never had a faith experience, or maybe someone that's kind of, started off religious, going to church, and has kind of fallen astray? What might you say to them?
Honestly, that's the hardest question. It's every now and then it pops up in my head. I think it's really hard for me because I'm really I think I was raised in this really good environment, and fortunately and unfortunately, we are largely a product of our environment. So if you were to be raised in a strong Christian community with good role models to encourage you to read your Bible and basically explain the values of Christianity, it's much easier to enter that faith life than if, let's say, you were unfortunately raised in a bad environment which didn't have those people, or even at times really bad people representing Christianity, that kind of made it hard for you to receive that blessing, or that opportunity to connect with Christ. So honestly, my best recommendation is to try and start off individually, where you don't try and find one person to give you the whole Bible or tell you what Christianity is about, right? Don't expect one person to do it for you, because there's some great people who represent, who can explain Christianity and who can explain the values of the Bible. But I think one big aspect of Christianity is that you and God have this personal connection, and foremost, that should be the most important thing, where you try to establish that personal connection with God, right? So I think I would do my research. I would start reading my Bible first, and then from there I'll try and find a community who I can resonate these values and kind of grow my faith life with. But first, establish that personal connection. Try and do yours. I don't want to say try and do yourself, because it's really hard to do it, but it's not a journey you can walk on alone. But you have to take that first step by yourself, and then from there it becomes I think easier to go from.
Yeah, definitely. It all starts with building that relationship and connection with Christ, and then once you kind of have that established, and we all fall astray. We all kind mm-hmm. of drift off and lose our way. But I think the nice thing about Christ is that he will always welcome us home with open arms.
Indeed.
Well, Dalu, really appreciate your time, taking a few minutes to share a little bit about your faith journey. Thanks so much, man, and hopefully we can have you back again soon.
Thank you very much. I will be very excited to come back on. I think what you guys are doing is really, really great. And I think especially with young people, you guys are kind of building this faith community for more young people to come along the journey. So thank you guys so much for doing this. Thank you for inviting me on, and have a great day.